Alright, hey everyone, I'm Herschel. Today we're going to talk about the nutrition of beef and dairy cattle and, how they differ, why they differ, and what we can do about it. So before we even start talking about the differences, we kind of want to talk about their perspective and just to get an understanding of what exactly we're talking about here. And so dairy and beef are both still cattle, right? A lot of people talk about all the differences between them, and you can obviously see the differences between them. But at the end of the day, they're still just cattle. They're just different breeds. This means that most of their nutritional needs are physiologically the same, depending on size and stuff, but or besides size and stuff. And both need the same essential nutrients. However, what we want out of our dairy and beef cattle are very, very different, and that's why we see so many of the differences in feeding come into play. And right here you can see a figure between dairy cow and beef cow. Obviously, the sizing is weird because, to my knowledge, most of our beef cows are Angus, and Angus are definitely smaller than dairy cows. Dairy cows are pretty big, and they're, as you can tell, pretty skinny, and we'll talk about that in a minute as well. So one of the big differences is setting, right? So, well, if just go into Google and type in dairy operations, or if you've been to one, a lot of it is indoor. There's no pasture that they're on. They are, as you can see in the top here, these are indoor. They're all being fed indoors, and they all kind of hang out there, and they all get milked in the parlor indoors. And down here you can see the calves and how they're separated, and they get the colostrum from the mom early, and then from there they kind of start on a calf starter or whatever, and then have a transition one, and eventually they'll start eating what their moms are eating. And so you can kind of see that the dairy cows and nutrition and management, it's much more intensive than what you see in these beef cows over here, where they're on pasture. A lot of depends on what sector you're in, but if they're in the cow calf operation or even a stocker one, you'll see them on pasture, kind of out there on their own grazing, and you can also see calves with their moms, and so and they can get the milk throughout, for the first few months, and it's just a whole different sort of setting. And also with the dairy cows, you get TMR, right? You get a total mixed ration where they get their fiber, they get their forage, and they get their concentrate as well on top of that, and a very high energy concentrate depending on what part of lactation they're in. Versus beef cattle, they don't get a TMR, especially in the beginning, unless they're in a feedlot, and then they will get some level of a TMR. So with the dairy, like I said, um, being more intensive, there are some specific things we need to do for dairy cattle. And so, since dairy cattle are such high producing animals, it's easy for them to become deficient in certain nutrients. And the two major ones that I've learned and that a lot of people hear about are energy and calcium. And that's mainly because milk needs so much of both of those nutrients to be developed, right? Milk is very a good nutrient, has a very high biological value. It takes a lot for that cow to make it and make so much of it, like the way we ask them to make it. And so if the energy levels are super low and they're not getting fed enough, but they're still producing all that milk, this thing called ketosis could occur. And in addition, if she isn't getting the proper calcium management practices before and during lactation, milk fever could occur. And as you can see in this picture, I'm pretty sure, as to my knowledge, these are one of the veins or arteries for, pretty sure it's a vein for the mammary gland, and as you can see, it's massive. It is taking a lot of blood away from the cow, and you can obviously see, so, this mammary gland is very, very highly innervated with veins and everything it needs to produce milk. And she's on the ground. She should have, what is it called? Ketosis. And also, with the milk fever, I wanted to say one more thing. So with the milk fever, you want to give them less calcium. It sounds weird, but you want to give them less calcium before lactation so that they can pull out some of their own calcium from their bones to get them used to having to, producing their own or having their own level of calcium in their blood. And then once they are lactating, you want to give them calcium, extra calcium, to supply for the milk. And so the beef industry, there's a big difference in the beef industry, but it's also divided, even within the beef industry, it's divided up between different stages of the cattle's life. And that this, for producers, allows for more specific management and nutritional strategies. So it's very important to understand what part of the industry the cattle is in to know how to feed it and to know what to feed it. For example, in some ways, a feedlot is more similar. There's feedlots, right? And they're more similar to how dairy operations run, while a cow-calf operation would have pasture for the cows to graze on, which is very dissimilar from dairy operations. And so this means that I definitely can't speak on all the nutrition involved with the beef industry, and I'd be lying to you if I said I knew everything that was involved, that is involved with this industry and with nutrition. So I'll just go over some few points that I know and I've learned. So one big difference, like I've said, is pasture. A lot of every single beef animal or beef cattle breeds will have seen some pasture in their life at some point. And so there's a whole lot to know when it comes to beef and more specifically pasture. But simply put, just because they have some grass to munch on, that doesn't mean you can just ignore them, right? If you ignore them, especially if they have lush spring grass to munch on, they can get grass tetany, and that means grass tetany happens when the lush spring grass is really low in magnesium, and that not good for the cow. And also, if you don't really check on your pasture a lot and you don't allow them to graze it frequent enough, you can get some mature grass, and mature grass is no good for digestibility, and that would reduce production on your animals. And also, because the mature grass has a lot of lignin in it, and that's it's completely indigestible by the mammal. And I know these are goats, and I thought they were cattle, but they're not, but it's okay, because still a lush green pasture. And, goats are still ruminants, so why not? And so in conclusion, no matter what kind of cattle you have or what kind of operation you have and who you are, it is most important to have a high quality nutrition that matches what your animals need. That's the most important part, to think about what matches what your animal need. And so good nutrition is key to proper production. And these are my references. Thank you, and have a good day.